Holding a penny in your palm might seem ordinary, but what if I told you that small copper disc could be worth thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars? I'm not talking about mythical coins or pieces that only exist in museums. I'm talking about pennies minted within your lifetime that might be sitting in an old coffee can or coin jar right now. Today, we're exploring three seemingly ordinary pennies from 1961, 1985, and 1999 that command extraordinary prices. These aren't just collector's items, they're historical artifacts with fascinating stories that have turned pocket change into legitimate investments. Let's dive into the hidden world of America's most valuable modern pennies. Our first coin takes us back to 1961, a year when John F. Kennedy was inaugurated as president, the Berlin Wall was constructed, and the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was busy producing what would become one of the most sought-after Lincoln cents in modern numismatic history. The 1961 double-die obverse Lincoln cent looks ordinary at first glance. It bears the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln that we've seen on the penny since 1909. But there's something unusual happening on this coin, something that occurred during a manufacturing mishap that created a small number of pennies with a distinct doubling error. To understand how this happened, we need to briefly explore the minting process. In 1961, dies used to strike coins were created using a hub that impressed the design into blank dies multiple times. If the dies shifted between impressions, it created a doubling effect on the final design. This is exactly what happened with the 1961 double-die penny. When you look closely at this error coin, and you'll definitely need magnification, you'll notice distinct doubling on the date and the word Liberty. The digits in 1961 show clear separation, with the most pronounced doubling visible on the 9 and 6. The letters in Liberty also display this characteristic, particularly noticeable on the B, E, and R. This isn't a subtle effect. Once you know what to look for, it's unmistakable even to a novice collector. What makes the 1961 double-die cent particularly fascinating is its relative obscurity compared to its famous cousin, the 1955 double-die cent. While the 1955 version is perhaps the most famous error coin in American numismatics, the 1961 has flown under the radar for decades, making it both rare and underappreciated. The exact number of 1961 double-die cents produced remains unknown, but numismatic experts estimate that fewer than 3,000 specimens exist across all conditions. Compare this to the regular 1961 penny, which had a mintage of over 1.8 billion, and you begin to understand just how rare this variant is. So what's this penny worth? The value varies dramatically based on condition. In circulated grades, meaning coins that show wear from being handled, a 1961 double-die cent can command anywhere from $200 for a heavily worn example to $2,500 for one in extra fine condition. But it's the uncirculated specimens that truly capture collectors' attention. A 1961 double-die in mint state 63, on the 70-point grading scale used by professional certification services, can sell for $3,000 to $4,000. Move up to mint state 65, and you're looking at $7,000 to $10,000. The finest known examples, graded mint state 67, have fetched over $30,000 at auction, not bad for a coin with a face value of 1 cent. In 2019, a particularly stunning example graded mint state 67 plus read by Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, sold for a record-breaking $38,400 at a heritage auction sale. The red designation is crucial here. It indicates that the coin retains at least 95% of its original mint luster and copper color. As copper coins age, they naturally tone to brown, making fully red specimens particularly desirable to collectors. What's particularly intriguing about the 1961 double-die cent is that it's still possible, though admittedly unlikely, to find one in circulation. Unlike many valuable coins that were recognized and hoarded shortly after minting, the 1961 double-die wasn't widely known to the collecting community until years after its production. This means some examples undoubtedly entered circulation and could theoretically still be found by sharp-eyed collectors examining their change. The story of discovery adds another layer of interest to this coin. The variety wasn't even listed in major error coin references until the 1970s, meaning for over a decade, these valuable pennies were potentially passing through countless hands unnoticed. Even today, many casual collectors aren't familiar with this variety, creating opportunities for knowledgeable numismatists. There's also an interesting condition phenomenon with these coins that adds to their mystique. Many of the surviving specimens show a die chip or small raised dot near Lincoln's bowtie. This distinctive marker, while technically an imperfection, has become a characteristic that collectors look for to help authenticate the variety. The 1961 double die cent also provides a window into the mechanics of minting during a transitional period in American coinage. The year 1961 saw the Lincoln cent composition remain at 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the traditional bronze alloy used since 1864. Just 2 years later, in 1963, the composition would change to 95% copper and 5% zinc, eliminating the tin component. By 1982, rising copper prices would force another change to the primarily zinc composition we know today. This makes the 1961 penny, particularly error varieties, representative of a traditional craftsmanship that has since disappeared from American coinage. For collectors, the hunt for a 1961 double die cent exemplifies what makes numismatics so addictive, the thrill of potentially finding something extraordinary among the ordinary. Every 1961 penny deserves a second look, a careful examination with a magnifying glass to check for that characteristic doubling. If you think you might have one of these valuable cents, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, don't clean the coin. Cleaning damages the original surface and can reduce its value by 50% or more. Second, compare it carefully to known examples, paying particular attention to the date and liberty. Finally, if you believe you found one, consider having it authenticated by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. The cost of grading, typically $20 to $30 for modern coins, is well worth it for a coin that could be worth thousands. Beyond its monetary value, the 1961 double die cent represents something more profound. It reminds us that imperfections sometimes create extraordinary value. In an era of mass production and machine precision, these human errors and manufacturing quirks connect us to the people behind the coins, the craftsmen whose small mistakes created numismatic treasures. As you examine your coin jars and penny rolls, remember that these overlooked coins sometimes tell the most fascinating stories, and occasionally, they're worth far more than their humble 1-cent face value. The 1961 double die Lincoln cent isn't just a valuable error coin, it's a tangible piece of American history that you might discover in your pocket change. Now let's fast forward a couple decades to 1985, the year of Live Aid, Back to the Future, and the introduction of New Coke. It was also the year that produced our next remarkable penny, the 1985 double die obverse Lincoln cent. The mid-1980s represented an interesting period for American coinage. The composition of the Lincoln cent had already transitioned in 1982 from the traditional 95% copper to a copper-plated zinc planchet that was 97.5% zinc and just 2.5% copper. This change was driven by rising copper prices that had pushed the melt value of the penny dangerously close to its face value. By 1985, the new zinc core pennies had become standardized, but the minting process remained susceptible to the same kinds of errors that created our previous rare penny. The 1985 double die cent emerged from the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark, as was standard for Philadelphia minted coins at that time. The doubling on this coin, while not as dramatic as some earlier double die varieties, is nonetheless distinct and unmistakable when you know what to look for. What makes this coin special is where the doubling appears. If you look closely at Lincoln's profile, particularly at his ear, bow tie, and the lapel of his coat, you'll notice clear separation in the design elements. The doubling extends to the motto, "In God We Trust," where it's especially visible in the letters God and Trust. The date also shows this characteristic doubling, though it's more subtle than what we see in the 1961 double die cent. The 1985 double die cent wasn't discovered immediately. In fact, it wasn't until the late 1980s that collectors began to notice this variety and recognize its significance. By then, millions of 1985 pennies had already entered circulation, with most people giving them no more than a passing glance before spending them. This delayed discovery meant that many examples were lost to commerce, with their distinctive error unrecognized as they passed from hand to hand. Unlike some error coins that come from a single die pair, the 1985 double die cent appears to have been produced from multiple dies that all shared similar doubling characteristics. This suggests that the error occurred during the hub-to-die process, affecting several working dies rather than just one. As a result, while still rare, the 1985 double die cent exists in somewhat greater numbers than some other famous double die varieties. Current estimates suggest that perhaps 10,000 to 15,000 examples might exist across all grades, still just a tiny fraction of the more than 5.6 billion pennies produced by the Philadelphia Mint in 1985. This relative scarcity, combined with growing collector awareness, has steadily pushed values upward over the past decade. Speaking of value, what might one of these 1985 double die cents be worth if you found it? In circulated condition, these cents typically command between $50 and $150, depending on the level of wear. Uncirculated examples start around $200 for Mint State 63 specimens and can reach $500 to $700 for those in Mint State 65. The most pristine examples, those graded Mint State 67 or higher, have sold for $1,500 to $2,000 at auction. A particularly notable sale occurred in 2018 when a 1985 double die cent graded Mint State 68 red by PCGS brought $3,120 at auction, an impressive sum for a relatively modern coin that most people would overlook. The red designation is especially important for copper-plated zinc cents, as it indicates that the coin retains its original bright copper surface without spotting or discoloration that often affects these coins as they age. What makes the 1985 double die particularly interesting from a collecting perspective is its accessibility. While not exactly common, these coins are obtainable enough that dedicated collectors can reasonably hope to add one to their collection without spending thousands of dollars. This places them in what many numismatists consider a sweet spot, rare enough to be valuable and exciting, but not so rare as to be out of reach for the average collector. There's another fascinating aspect to these 1985 pennies that adds to their allure. The mid-1980s represented a transitional period in U.S. mint quality control procedures. Throughout much of the 20th century, error coins were caught and destroyed before leaving the mint. However, budget constraints during the 1980s led to reduced staffing and less rigorous inspection processes. As a result, more error coins, including our 1985 double die cents, made it into circulation during this period than in previous decades. For die-hard variety collectors, there's yet another layer of complexity. Numismatic researchers have identified at least 3 distinct stages of the 1985 double die cent, each showing slightly different characteristics in the doubling pattern. These stages correspond to different points in the die's life cycle, as continued use caused the doubling effect to gradually diminish. The earliest examples, known as Stage 1 doubling, show the most pronounced separation and command the highest premiums. I've personally spoken with collectors who have incredible stories about finding these coins. One gentleman from Ohio told me he discovered a near-perfect example in a roll of pennies he purchased specifically to search for errors. Another collector found one in a jar of coins that had belonged to his late father, a poignant reminder that sometimes these treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge to recognize their value. The 1985 double die cent also serves as a gateway coin for many collectors. Its relatively affordable price point makes it an attainable goal for beginners, while the challenge of identifying the doubling provides an education in the careful observation skills that define successful numismatists. Many collectors report that finding their first error coin, often something like this 1985 double die, was what transformed their casual interest in coins into a serious pursuit. Unlike many valuable coins that show dramatic, obvious errors visible to the naked eye, the 1985 double die requires care and attention to identify correctly. This has led to some confusion in the marketplace, with ordinary 1985 cents sometimes being misrepresented as the double die variety. For the uninitiated, it can be difficult to distinguish genuine doubling from more common striking anomalies like machine doubling or strike doubling, which don't carry the same premium. This brings us to an important point for anyone searching for these coins: education is key. Before purchasing a supposed 1985 double die cent, particularly online or from non-specialist dealers, it's worth familiarizing yourself with genuine examples through reference books or reputable numismatic websites. Better yet, seek out examples that have been certified by major grading services like PCGS or NGC, which offer a guarantee of authenticity. For those of you watching who might be inspired to search for this coin, remember that 1985 pennies are still regularly found in circulation, though certainly less frequently than more recent dates. Bank rolls, dealer, unsearched lots, and even that jar of change on your dresser could potentially hold one of these treasures. The hunt itself is part of the enjoyment of numismatics, the thrill of the chase followed by the satisfaction of discovery. As we transition from the Reagan era to our final coin from the late 1990s, it's worth reflecting on how these modest 1-cent pieces capture specific moments in American history. The 1985 double die cent, with its zinc core and thin copper coating, represents American pragmatism and adaptation in the face of changing economic realities. Despite its relatively humble status among era coins, it reminds us that value often lies where we least expect it, even in the pocket change we take for granted. Our final featured coin brings us to the close of the 20th century, 1999, the year of Y2K fears, the debut of The Sopranos, and the last full year before the new millennium. It also gave us one of the most extraordinary modern penny varieties, the 1999 wide AM Lincoln cent. What makes this coin special lies in a tiny detail that most people would never notice without magnification. On the reverse of the Lincoln cent is the phrase United States of America arcing along the top rim, followed by 1 cent at the bottom and the Lincoln Memorial in the center. Look closely at the word America, specifically at the letters A and M. On standard 1999 pennies from the Philadelphia Mint, these letters are positioned close together, with the bases of the two letters nearly touching. This is known as the close AM variety. But a small number of 1999 Philadelphia pennies were struck using a reverse die that was actually intended for proof coins produced at the San Francisco Mint. On these special dies, the A and M have a wider space between them, hence the name wide AM variety. It's a subtle difference that requires a magnifying glass to spot, but it's made a world of difference in the coin's value. How did this mix-up happen? The story involves the different die designs used for regular circulation coins versus special collector proof coins. Throughout the 1990s, the U.S. Mint used different master dies for each type. The proof coins featured the wide AM design, while circulation strikes used the close AM design. Somehow in 1999, a small number of reverse dies intended for proof coins were mistakenly used to strike regular circulation pennies at the Philadelphia Mint. What makes this error particularly fascinating is its rarity. While millions of regular 1999 pennies were produced, numismatic experts estimate that only a few thousand, perhaps as few as 5,000, wide AM varieties ever made it into circulation. Many of these were discovered only years later, after collectors became aware of the variety and began specifically searching for them. The value of the 1999 wide AM cent has seen remarkable growth over the past decade. In circulated condition, these coins typically sell for $50 to $150, depending on the level of wear. Uncirculated examples start around $200 for specimens in Mint State 63 and can reach $500 to $800 for those in Mint State 65. The most pristine examples in Mint State 67 or higher have sold for well over $3,000 at major auctions. One particularly notable sale occurred in 2019, when a 1999 White AM cent graded mint state 68 red by PCGS sold for an astounding $7,050 at auction. That's an incredible return on investment for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent. Beyond the wide AM spacing, there are additional diagnostic features that help identify this variety. Careful examination of the letters T and Y in Liberty on the obverse shows slight doubling. Additionally, the designer's initials, FG, for Frank Gasparo, on the reverse, located to the right of the Lincoln Memorial, appear slightly different on the wide AM variety compared to the standard issue. What I find most compelling about the 1999 Wide AM cent is how it represents the intersection of human error and institutional processes within a massive organization like the U.S. Mint. Despite sophisticated quality control systems, a simple mix-up of dies created a numismatic treasure that has captivated collectors. It's a reminder that even in our modern, mechanized world, human factors still create unexpected outcomes. The discovery story of this variety adds another layer of interest. Unlike some famous error coins that were recognized immediately upon release, the 1999 Wide AM cent went unnoticed for several years. It wasn't until around 2002 to 2003 that collectors began to recognize and document this variety. By then, most 1999 pennies had already entered circulation, with millions discarded, lost, or sitting forgotten in jars and drawers across America. This delayed discovery has created a fascinating ongoing treasure hunt. To this day, dedicated collectors continue to search through rolls of pennies hoping to find an unidentified 1999 Wide AM cent. There are documented cases of collectors finding these valuable coins in bank rolls as recently as 2020, more than 2 decades after they were minted. These modern discoveries fuel the excitement and possibility that keeps many collectors engaged in the hobby. There's a psychological aspect to the appeal of coins like the 1999 Wide AM cent that's worth exploring. In an era where technology has made many things predictable and uniform, finding something unique or rare provides a special thrill. The idea that something valuable might be hiding in plain sight, perhaps even in your own pocket change, creates a sense of possibility and adventure in everyday life. For those of you inspired to search for this coin, I recommend starting with any 1999 Philadelphia cents you might have, those without a mint mark. Arm yourself with a good magnifying glass or coin loupe, and carefully examine the spacing between the A and M in America on the reverse. Compare it with other cents from different years to train your eye to recognize the difference. And remember, patience is key, the hunt is part of the enjoyment. The 1999 Wide AM cent also teaches an important lesson about numismatic knowledge. Many of these coins were in circulation for years before anyone recognized their value, simply because collectors didn't know what to look for. This underscores why education and research are so vital in coin collecting. The more you know, the more likely you are to spot something others might miss. Unlike many valuable coins that are locked away in safety deposit boxes or museum collections, the 1999 Wide AM cent represents the democratic nature of coin collecting. Anyone with interest and knowledge has a chance to find one. This accessibility is part of what makes modern coin collecting so engaging. The playing field is relatively level, with success often determined by persistence and knowledge rather than just purchasing power. As our journey through these remarkable modern pennies comes to a close, I'm struck by the common thread that unites them. Each coin, the 1961 double die, the 1985 double die, and the 1999 Wide AM, represents a moment when something went slightly awry in the minting process, creating numismatic treasures that might be hiding in your spare change right now. These coins remind us that value isn't always where we expect to find it. Sometimes it's in the overlooked details, the subtle variations, or the small mistakes that make something unique. They're a testament to the joy of discovery and the rewards that come from paying attention to the small things that others might miss. Whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who's never looked twice at your pocket change, I hope this exploration has opened your eyes to the possibilities that might be sitting in your coin jar right now. The next time you have a handful of pennies, take a moment to look a little closer. You never know, you might be holding a small copper disc worth thousands of dollars. Thank you for joining me on this numismatic adventure. Until next time, happy collecting, and remember to always check your change.